Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. It's Gen Con Online 2020, and here at Roll for Crit, we are going to give you our impressions of Vampire the Masquerade Vendetta from Horrible Guild. We got to play this game in a digital incarnation. It's an area control game set in the world of Vampire the Masquerade. Each player has their own personal vampire clan, and there's going to be a series of locations at the center of the table, and you will be playing cards to those locations with different strengths to try to conquer them. You can also add blood drops, tokens and currency that you have, and that will increase your strength, and whoever has the highest number there will be rewarded with new cards, possibly new abilities and victory points. But if you run out of blood, that's bad. You're going to go into a frenzy. You're going to be forced to drain one of your allies, and that could be a fellow vampire, which is a very bad look for a vampire. They frown on vampire cannibalism in the world of Vampire the Masquerade. So, area control game. There's a bit of bluffing. You can also play cards face down to hide them. What did you think, Will, of that aspect of it, or the game as a whole?
So going into this, I saw the game you start with, I think, a 7 to 9 cards. I can't remember the exact count for your clan, and 3 rounds. I'm like, okay, this would just be a quick, light game, not thinking too hard. But I was really impressed with some of these synergies of the different cards of the groups, and then also just trying to outthink your opponent some of the times, because I'm like, you can play as many cards you want face down and trick them when you do resolving. It costs blood though, so you have to decide, is it worth that? Put that blood face down, or maybe I can wait till the end because it won't matter if they know after they've played most of their cards. And then you get surprised when, for example, the group you were playing with was like, guess what? It now costs blood to flip your card up. You can drop on an area. So it's really interesting to see the interplay of like, do I decide how to fight? What's worth fighting for? Is it worth? Is it okay for me to frenzy because I don't think I'll hit anything too bad?
Mm-hmm.
It surprised me.
Yeah, I think what you hit on about the small deck is part of what makes it so interesting, because you only have so many cards, but as the game goes on, you'll see people play them, and you start to learn what's in their deck, and you might start to think and plan around those cards. So like you said, I had a card that made it harder for you to flip over face down cards to reveal them and trigger their powerful effects. So you might wait until later in the round and say, I want to make sure that he's maybe playing that or not playing that. If I can try to figure out where he's playing it, I can try to avoid it. And sometimes you'll fall into some traps. You also, before an area is scored, you have the option to just withdraw, and you completely get out of there. You don't get any points, but you don't suffer any consequences. So sometimes someone would play a card face up that's like, look, you can be here and maybe you'll win. Maybe you have more points than I do. But if you stay here, I'm going to steal blood from you. So that's your choice, and maybe I'm okay with that. Or maybe I'm going to withdraw. You don't know. You all reveal simultaneously. So there's some very interesting mind games that you can play that way. But even still, the game time they say is 30 minutes, and I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe 30 to 45, depending on how familiar you are with the cards and things. But because it's only 3 rounds, each round gets longer and longer. But it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. It felt like it lasted the perfect amount of time, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, the 3 rounds, because you get more resources to each round. So that final round was very interesting because we all had a lot more cards, and we're like, all right, now that I have most of the cards I can play, how can I get my combo off to work out? And just like, this is looking good. And then, like I said, you play the card you did or something else, and you're just like, oh, that changes things.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of game where if you play it a few times, you get to know other people's decks. And then round 1 is a mind game because you don't know what people have, but you know what they might have. And again, they could play things face down. So you're just going in blind sometimes. A lot of the cards will do things like it's face down, and maybe when you reveal it actually moves somewhere else, or has some other kind of effect that's a total bluff just to trick your opponents.
And of course, we haven't even mentioned yet the rewards for winning areas. Obviously, you get victory points. It's how you win the game. But there's also going to be allies in each sector. and they come in either as vampires or humans. Now, humans tend to help you earn more blood, which you can use to spend for putting cards face down, different abilities, or making sure you don't go into a frenzy. Vampires tend to give you more victory points and strong abilities. For example, I had one that allowed me to win ties, which is very helpful. Jonathan got one that made putting face down cards cheaper, which is very nice. So it's really interesting to see then what people think is worth it for them. Like if you know someone putting a lot of cards on, let's say the winning ties vampire, they're like, okay, they really want to make sure they win a tie. Or maybe they need that human because you notice that they don't have a lot of blood production. So maybe, yeah, I'm going to rival you there and force you to put all your resources there. And then I'll just retreat because you can't risk it.
Yeah, or maybe you're just going there because you think someone else wants it and you want them to think that you want it so that they have to put even more stuff there. And then they don't put their cards on the place you really want it. A lot of things like that. And the frenzy thing when you run out of blood is also quite scary. We both of us went into frenzy and I was forced to feast upon vampire flesh.
Twice.
Yeah, it could be scary. And I was like, man, I have so much blood. I felt totally good about it and it didn't.
Well, yeah, that's when we did not learn our lesson because the third player we were playing with was using a group that was all about making us lose and steal blood. And that last round, he hit us for a 4, which was a lot.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough because I had one guy whose ability was, instead of going random, you choose him, which was very lucky for me. But did you frenzy twice too, or just once? I can't remember.
I think just once, if I recall.
Just once, yeah. And it just happened to hit your one vampire. I think we each had. You don't have to build up too many. You get a lot of victims, which are nice. They're almost like bodyguards to protect your good cards.
Yeah,
and you couldn't choose actually to feast on people without frenzying during the placing card phase. So you could see like, oh, I'm gonna need that blood. I'm sacrificing him for the regular generating to get that bonus right now. So overall, it was, once again, a surprise for such a light game. We should mention, by the way, this is 3 to 5, but I think they had, I want to say 8 different clans you can play as, so plenty of variety there.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe 6 to 8. I don't remember the exact number. But yeah, you need at least 3 players to play it with a lot of the bluffing and things. Maybe you can develop a variant when the game comes out. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. So Vampire the Masquerade Vendetta from Horrible Guild. It was on Kickstarter earlier this year. It should be hitting release later this year. So be on the lookout for it. We both enjoyed our time with it. And let us know if you're a backer or what you think from what you've heard about it. If you got the chance to try out a digital version maybe, in the comments down below. And this has been Roll for Crit.
Thanks to all our members of our Patreon page for making this show possible. You can sign up for exclusive benefits or help us by liking and subscribing.
You can also take a quick survey to help us improve Roll for Crit, and in exchange, you'll receive access to a Patreon exclusive podcast episode. Stay up to date on all our Gen Con online coverage, including live gameplay at rollforcrit.com.